You got it.
Hello Neverwinter. Here we have how to DPS Master Shackles of Divinity. So for this one I have brushed off the Warlock and I've tried to give you a few hints and tips about how to not die out before phase 3. So the main focus that you're going to need to know on this is that upstairs on the platform you need to be on those mechanics as soon as they're called, as soon as you notice them. Stuff like the small balls floating around. Don't just think you've hit a ball and then you can turn around and carry on DPSing. You've got to make sure those balls are dead, because if a DPS gets knocked off, a healer gets knocked off, you're going to wipe, everyone's going to get frustrated, it's going to be a bad time. So without further ado, let's get into it. At the first point here, you're going to want to stay out. She always starts off with a scream. Some of the other mechanics may vary. But then we go in, group up to the left, the DPS and the healers, go artifacts, do some nice big rotations. The tanks are away to the right hand side. And the reason why we're positioning here is because she does that big sword smash down there, and if you're far enough to the left you can avoid that happening to kill you. There can be a few variations of that where there's some reds happening. And as you can see, take out those balls immediately. That's a job for all the DPS, but obviously ranged and particularly Warlocks have an advantage due to us being able to reset our encounter powers so readily. Now those little, those tiny little red circles, some of them you can stand in and you just take damage. There are others which flash up with a sort of rune symbol in the middle. You gotta be careful with those little ones because they will knock you off. So on this first article with this group, we are throwing all our mitigation so that we can stand in these red areas and continue to DPS. Obviously, if your group isn't doing that, you need to dodge those. Important for these balls as well, they are virtually impossible to target if you are in any way facing towards the boss. You need to be fully turned around to actually be able to hit them, usually. As you can see, that swipe's coming in. Now, one major disadvantage the Warlock has with these, with getting down to the bottom here, is that we can't avoid the falling damage by dodging at the last minute. So you're going to want to have your health stone up and go down a couple of platforms before dropping off. Again, as a Warlock, part of my role there is to just make sure those adds are dead on the initial point. We split the team into two groups. Group 1 will throw on the first and last boss. Group 2 will throw on the second boss. And that helps us just have a nice split of artifacts and DPS mount powers and dailies to make sure these things get burned down quick enough. You don't necessarily need overwhelming damage to get through this point, but you do need to have the correct setup and the right people throwing on the right points. Occasionally, as a Warlock, I get roped into doing runes, but on this occasion I have not been roped into doing the runes. Quite often on this last one we'll give it 10% before throwing, just to make it a bit safer. Obviously that execution kicks in around 40%, I think. And that's where a lot of people fall down, because they throw all the big stuff and then they run out of steam by the time it gets to the 40%. The reason we're going around the way we're going as well is there's two different jumping points to get up here. This one is slightly easier than the other one. On the other side, although there's a way you can stand on the other side to make it virtually as easy as this, there can be a slightly awkward jump between the first and second points. And everyone stays out at this point. There's not much point going in since you can't really do any damage in the initial point. Similar pattern, similar positioning. Go in, throw the artifacts. Grouping up to the left to avoid big balls that start spawning. And that can be a dangerous little sequence. These hypos will start popping from phase 3. So going to want mitigation throwing. Healers and tanks get assigned different mitigations for different hypos. And again, as usual, very important to kill those balls as soon as possible. This spread mechanic can be quite dangerous as well. Whoever's shielding, hopefully a paladin, will shield you up just before those hit and quite easily kill you in the last phase, those ones. Might notice I'm using Vampiric Embrace on the Warlock here as well. That is something of a lifesaver. You can just keep yourself constantly topped up. It's nice. And this is going to be basically a repeat of phase 2. Again, take out those little mobs. They do a lot of these little reds on the ground will push you or pull you. Like that little cone that's just pulled a load of people over. Obviously, if you get pulled off the platform, it's a wipe. If you get pulled onto a rune, it's going to blast out and be a wipe. Got to be careful. You kind of got to balance out the fact that you need to kill the bosses with the fact that if too many of these mobs are up, you're probably going to end up getting pulled or pushed onto something you don't want to. You can position these bosses in slightly safer places to avoid the potential for being pushed onto the runes. So try to pull them a few steps away from the rune platforms. And then just be aware of where your feet are and what's around you. As you'll notice, we've got pretty good burn here. Which is partly from strong DPS and partly from just very well timed artifacts and encounter throwing. If you've got things like wizards in the group, so they'll want to make sure they've got their encounters up for when the other team throws their artifacts to maximise the amount of damage being done. Obviously, if they throw their encounters just before the artifact happens, and then they've got a 10-second cooldown, they can miss the entire artifact window, and they're much slower burn. Like I said in my how to tank video, you don't need to panic on these jumps. You've got time to position, look, and then jump correctly. There is occasionally a little, feels like a bug. I don't know if it is a bug or just sometimes it takes a while for the jumping thing to apply, but there's been quite a few occasions where you'll go to jump and you won't have the jumping buff on, and you'll just basically nearly yeet yourself into the void. So just watch out for that as well. Phase 5 is very similar to Phase 2, except there's a quick hypo after the first hypo. Which happens with a ball spawn. So another occasion where you got to kill those balls extremely quickly and then position yourself extremely quickly as well. Like I say, upstairs, until you're very experienced, there's no point really greeding. It's just make sure you get those mechanics done. There's no point having an extra 10, 20, 30 mil on the board if everyone's wiped. And unless everyone's doing pretty equal damage, chances are people are going to cap out the damage board anyway, so there's really no point. You might notice everyone's been quite mechanically good, shall we say. Got very few death stacks. Having a few death stacks does make a big difference in success or failure on this. But also it's very possible to lose your death stack. You know, if you get a death stack in phase 1, 2, 3, you can quite easily lose it before the end if you play well. It's a good idea to have a good bit of defense in here as well. Awareness doesn't cut it for this particular trial. Defense is the only thing that really matters. So if you've got that above 35%, it certainly helps. And once again, handy thing about the Warlock is you can throw off an encounter rotation and then get all your encounters back in time for that article as well. So Warlocks have something of an advantage in this dungeon, even if the DCs tend to be doing outrageous damage. You kind of got to be especially careful with these when there are mobs around, that you don't throw your big hits onto the mobs. That can happen quite regularly. And that particular mob is a massive pain in the ass. He shields himself up and then puts that blanket red on the ground, and it just sort of it pushes across the entirety of the red zone, so you can quite easily get knocked onto something or off something. I have to say the healers did a fantastic job on this run as well as the tanks and obviously the DPS. Excellent mechanical awareness. You can see the paladins just shielding us up as we go up here as well. Takes a bit of the pressure off. If you find yourself going up there without a healer, you're going to have to be carefully time your health stone. You can make it up without a healer, you just got to be don't use your health stone till the last second and try to be quite fast. Phase 7, a lot of dot damage. You got to stay within the healing zones when you can and avoid all the reds you can. As you can see, it gets a little bit frantic with the reds. And these hypos can be particularly bad because obviously if you get a dot tick at the same second that the hypo hits, it can just wipe you straight out. So your healer's got to be on the ball, especially your paladin. And again, taking those balls out, incredibly important. I'll give a shout out to Jurgvin again as well, as I did in the last one. He was calling for this run, as he calls most of the time. And he's very, very good at it, which definitely contributes to the success of the runs. And there we go. That is how to DPS Master Shackles of Divinity. Shout out to the team, another Dreadnoks guild group. Fantastic heals, fantastic DPS and fantastic calls as always. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you like a lot of videos, please subscribe. I will put this Warlock build out soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.